between the military and healthcare. You somehow have to choose raising taxes if you want to keep benefits. It's a false choice. The Liberal Party, when it was in office, raised taxes, and they cut healthcare, and they cut education, and they cut pensions, and they cut all these things because when they raise taxes, they hurt economic growth and they hurt the economy. That is a false choice. We're all moving forward together. We need a low-tax future where we can continue to fund and increase funding for our healthcare system. That's what we're doing. That's what we're succeeding at, and that's the path we've got to stay on.
Jack Layton.
The problem with both Mr. Harper's party and Mr. Ignatieff's party is that they don't propose to do anything now. They're talking about something far off into the future. And if you look at your platforms, you'll see what I'm talking about. There's no investments right now in getting the significant increase in family doctors and nurses that we need today. There's 5 million Canadians who don't have family medicine. We're not getting the investments in home care and long-term care that are needed today. And we're not seeing proposals on how we can actually implement, including with some funding, the program to begin to get our pharmaceutical prices down. And that's what the NDP is offering.
Mr. Ignatieff, then Mr. Duceppe.
That's just completely false. We're the only party in this election with a specific proposal on family care, so that you can take time off for work to look after a loved one at home, so you can get some reimbursement of your expenses providing health care in the home. That's a key dynamic in the future that we've got to invest in and strengthen. The other thing we need to be saying to Canadians is we need more health, not necessarily more health care. Health prevention, health education. We're the only party with a national food policy to put more Canadian food on Canadian plates and get the salt, fat, and sugar down. That's how you get better value for your health care dollar. That's how we improve the health of Canadians. That ought to be the goal. That's in our platform. That's the kind of commitment we're prepared to make.
It's a promise you're making. Unfortunately, your party has a rather long history of making promises in elections and breaking them
Jack,
after.
At least we get into government. You'll be in opposition forever.
There's that sense of entitlement once again. Same old attitude from the Liberal Party.
Monsieur Duceppe.
But the problem is, I think there's too much money in Ottawa. And Ottawa's collecting too much money for the jurisdiction of its own. I mean, healthcare is a provincial jurisdiction, and the expertise is there. Not in Ottawa, you're not managing a single hospital in Ottawa. That means if we start negotiating who's going to do what, it'll be a fight between bureaucrats instead of giving the money to those who need the money to make sure the services will be given to those who need those services. So we need a new fiscality to make sure the money goes where it should go, not here and then imposing decisions with no expertise at all on the provinces and on Quebec.
I've tried to stay out of this thing all night long because you gentlemen have been doing a fine job keeping it going, but I did get a lot of emails, I must say, from people saying, please ask them this. You're all promising to continue health funding at 6% a year in a world where our growth rates are about 2% and change, and while you're all promising to keep taxes reasonably low, and you're all promising to erase deficits that are very, very high. Can any of you really do this? 1, 2, 3. Let's hear from you all, please.
Yes, absolutely. You make it your highest priority. That's what we've done. We've said right from the beginning, we've laid out the fiscal plan. It's the International Monetary Fund and others says very credible, and we've been clear. We're not going to cut the rate of increase in transfers for healthcare, education, and pensions. That is job number one. That's why it's going to take us 3 or 4 years to balance the budget, but we're going to make sure that we maintain and continue to fund those programs, because that's ultimately what Canadians think it's all about, keeping the economy strong so we can continue to deliver these kinds of services.
Mr. Layton.
It's going to be about making choices. Mr. Harper's trying to tell us tonight that one can have absolutely everything. Huge tax cuts and huge expenditures on jets and continued increase in health spending. This isn't the old Stephen Harper talking. This is the one who's now been affected by the Ottawa culture, I have to say. But it does mean making some choices, and some things we will not be able to do if we're going to fund our health care. And we've set out some of those things that should not be done. Mr. Harper's budget includes a platform includes an $11 billion hole, things he says he's going to not spend money on, but he won't tell us what they are. Will they be food inspectors? Will they be in the military? Who are these people going to be? What services are going to be lost? We say it's important to make choices, and Canadians are going to have a chance to do that on May 2nd.
Mr. Ignatieff.
Straight question deserves a straight answer. You peg the corporate tax rate at 18%, you save $6 billion. You put those jets out to competitive tender, you save more billions. You stop building those mega prisons, you save still more billions. That allows you to invest 6% to improve Canadian health care. That's how you, this is choice time. Mr. Harper is offering you fantasy economics. He cannot explain how he's going to sustain Canadian health care. We can.
Monsieur Duceppe?
I'll give you two examples. It's about choices. Obviously, it's about choices. We should stop giving the oil companies fiscal advantages, $3 billion. And we should also stop letting money, $3 billion, going into tax haven. We even signed a treaty with Panama, a tax haven. I mean, $3 billion a year plus those $3 billion to the oil companies, that makes all in all $6 billion. Just those two examples.
Mr. Harper?
Well, let me just say this. Our philosophy is pretty clear. You fund services like healthcare by making sure you keep your economy growing and creating jobs. You don't do that by raising taxes. The other parties are all proposing that they can fund all of these new promises, $30 billion, $60 billion, by increasing tax rates on job creators. You know, experts say that's going to cost us 200,000 jobs and $40 billion in investment. You grow the economy and you grow your tax base by creating economic growth. That's what we're committed to.
Speak the truth, Mr. Harper. We're actually proposing, instead of giving tax breaks like you do to the richest, most powerful companies in the country, the ones that gouge Canadians half the time, banks and what have you, we're saying lower the taxes on small businesses and help those small businesses to create jobs with $4,500 per new job created. That's what we're proposing. But nothing like you're suggesting.
The truth, Mr. Layton, is that we cut taxes for businesses, both big and small, several years ago, and the New Democratic Party voted against all of those tax reductions. The New Democratic Party will never cut taxes. It will always raise taxes.
Yeah, now, that's too much to hear you say that. That is simply too much, and it's not true.
Michael Ignatieff, please.
Mr. Harper, your numbers just don't add up. But our numbers do. If you peg corporate tax at 18%, you can save $6 billion. 18% is a good competitive rate that will attract jobs and attract investment. That $6 billion you can use to invest in education, a learning passport. The biggest boost that we can give to our economy is investing in the education of our children. And we can do this without raising taxes on ordinary Canadian families.
Mr. Ignatieff, every credible economic analyst, every major business group in this country says that if you raise taxes, you will hurt growth, hurt jobs, and hurt revenue. And that's the truth. And that's the path we do not want to go down.
You want to come back on that one more time? Go ahead.
But we need to roll back payroll taxes for small and medium-sized businesses to do the hiring. We've got unemployment rates among young Canadians at 16%, something that you actually haven't done anything about while you're in office. If we create an incentive to hire those young people from small and medium-sized enterprises, that's going to create 170,000 jobs. It lowers their taxes,
in the budget.
It lowers
that we're waiting for Parliament to pass. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business and others have called on Parliament to act and to pass these measures to help hiring.
Gilles Duceppe.
One thing we'll oppose is taking $17 billion on 5 years out of the Employment Insurance Fund. This is exactly what the Flaherty budget's proposing, and sadly, that the NDP and the Liberals are also for that measure in the proposals you've made. Look at them.
I hate to bear the disappointing news, but that's it. You have one more thing to do, and that is you get a closing statement. So again, we drew for lots for the order of speaking. Jack Layton, you get to speak first. 45 seconds to each of our leaders to finish off tonight.
Well, dear friends who've been following this debate, Mr. Ignatieff's party was in power for 13 years, and there were lots of problems and many failures. And then Mr. Harper was in power for 5 years, and again, many failures. They, between them, have, of course, supervised, whether it's corruption in government, real difficulties with our healthcare system, our environmental record on the world stage is in tatters, and when it comes to the economy, you're having a tougher and tougher time to make ends meet. Now, you have a choice, contrary to what some might try to suggest, in this election. And you've got a great chance to exercise that choice by voting New Democrat and giving us the opportunity to implement right now new doctors and nurses, much more affordable life with credit card fees capped, and with new job creation programs, as well as protecting your pension. I urge you to support the New Democrats. We'll fight for you.
Thank you, Mr. Layton. Monsieur Duceppe.
Dear friends, the other leaders' actions prove that they do not really recognize Quebec as a nation. None of them has taken into account the Quebec consensus. I have the greatest respect for Canada, but Canada bases its policies on its own interests. Quebecers have the right to make their own choices. To do so, Quebec must become a country. But as long as Quebec is part of Canada, the Bloc will be there for Quebec. A conservative majority will act against our interests. Stephen Harper hides his intention. We cannot trust him. The Bloc is still the only party in Quebec able to stop Stephen Harper. I invite everyone who does not want a conservative majority to vote for the Bloc Québécois. Good evening.
Michael Ignatieff.
On May the 2nd, choose a government that respects democracy. Choose a government that respects the citizens' rights. Choose a government that focuses on your priorities. Mr. Harper doesn't have your priorities in mind. His priorities are jets, jails, and corporate tax giveaways. Our priorities are to help Canadian families get an education for their kids at college and university with our learning passport, early learning and childcare for families that need it, home reno so that they can make their families more energy efficient, and restore Canada's proud place in the world. The choice will be between a Harper government or a Liberal government on May the 2nd. I hope you'll vote Liberal, but most of all, I thank you for taking part in this debate tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Ignatieff. Stephen Harper.
First of all, I want to thank Canadians for their honor and their trust as having served as their Prime Minister, your Prime Minister, over the past 5 years, including during some very difficult economic times. But it has kept us focused on the economy, on creating jobs, on delivering affordable benefits to people, and making sure we keep your taxes low. As a consequence, Canada, which was already the greatest country in the world, the best country, is emerging from this recession stronger and faster than just about anyone. That's what we need Parliament to focus on. That's why we're asking for a renewed mandate, a strong, stable, national, conservative majority government to focus on the economy. We have a recovery to complete. We have a job to finish, and we would be honored to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Harper, and thank you, gentlemen. And that ends this leaders' debate. We hope it shed some light on the issues facing Canada in these times and helps you decide how to vote on May the 2nd. A reminder that these same leaders will be here again tomorrow night to debate in French. And you can see that 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the TVA network and Radio-Canada. You can see the debate simultaneously translated into English on CBC News Network and CTV News Channel. I'm Steve Paikin. Good night from Ottawa.